Welcome back. Welcome in. This is Country Roads Confidential at earsports.com, a CBS Sports podcast emergency edition here, as expected, about the head coaching position at West Virginia University. Chris Anderson, perhaps not as expected. Neal Brown will be back in 2023. That is announced on the day that his new boss is hired, Ren Baker from North Texas. I don't know where to begin, so let me just give you the floor while I try to put my thoughts together here.
It's been a wild kind of day, and this is, I think, I don't know what is it. I can't remember when that podcast was. It was after one of the games several weeks ago. I said the back and forth, the heat and the hawing, the not making a decision was going to be the downfall of this whole situation, and it made things difficult. It made things very difficult. I've rehashed that enough, but this right here is, I've been calling for them to go all in one way or another. Do it. Like, you can't do the half-ass thing. You have to go all in one way or another. And with today's news, hired an athletic director. The athletic director, at least according to what we're hearing, reading, was part of this decision to keep Neal Brown. And Neal Brown's coming back. That is, bang, bang, bang. Done, all in. This is what's going on for next season. So kudos to them, I guess, for making a move and sticking to it right now.
All right, how about some full disclosure time? Are you ready?
Yeah.
We're doing this before the news is officially out. So we might actually get the breaking news in our hand. So there might be some answers that come out that we do not yet have. If there is a statement from Ren Baker, it might lay out expectations. The press release may have amended contract details. It may have staff decisions. I do not know. Let's talk about those variables, though, Chris.
Okay.
The new athletic director is not going to say, this was not my call, but I did agree to do the job. So in perpetuity, we will probably wonder how much of this was pushed upon him, how much of this was his idea, how much of this was his cooperation. Don't know. We'll never know that for certain. Unless he tells us, which, again, that'd be interesting. But also, it's very reasonable for the university and even the new athletic director to say, you can come back. You cannot keep the same company around you. West Virginia has 2 assistant coaches who are on expiring contracts, 8 who were promised for at least next year. 2, the coordinators, are promised for the following year. There's some money tied up in that for sure, but there's also some performance involved that maybe has not been up to par expectations in the present or the recent past, but more importantly, cannot be expected to be up to expectations that are needed in the future to keep the head coach in power. I just don't believe they're going to bring back everybody. I just don't. I'm not batting 1,000 on this, though, so who knows? The other one is Neal Brown's contract, too. And this has been pushed to me a bunch, that people have said, hey, what if they hardball him? Which I love if that's a verb. Can they sweeten Neal Brown's contract a little bit?
Yeah, explain it to everybody so they know what we're talking about here.
So you might amend his contract so that he is willing to lower the buyout in exchange for being able to remain the West Virginia coach. And again, to call that a hardball, 2 years ago, he had his salary lopped in half. He became one of the lowest paid head coaches in the Big Ten. His buyout was shrunk. And then he turned around and had back-to-back fantastic seasons. Jim Harbaugh is Jim Harbaugh. Michigan is Michigan. You play a different game at that altitude. And he won. What is the altitude that a Neal Brown or a West Virginia would seek to attain here? I don't know. And also, Jim Harbaugh had 1 year left on his contract. He got cut from about $8 million to about $4 million, and also was a wealthy coach who had a nice NFL career. I'm not sure money was a concern for him. And he knew he was going to be very good last year, which was next year at the time. Neal Brown has 4 years left on his contract. He came from the group of 5. He's making $4 million. So you're not going to give him length. You're not going to give him some wealth that would make him feel better. You're not going to give him less money for his buyout if he were to take a job somewhere else, because that doesn't make any sense, because you're essentially trying to get rid of him. You're making it easier to fire him if you go in and say, we're going to amend your contract. This buyout you have is outrageous. I didn't agree to this. So my first order of business is to lower the gate, make it easier for us to get rid of you. How do you make Brown say yes? Because Brown has to say yes. He doesn't have to. He's insubordinate. You can fire him. I dare you, is what he could say. I dare you to fire me and see what happens now. You're going to have to pay me anyways, right? It just doesn't make sense. He has a years on his contract. He has a very high buyout for 4 years. It's 100, 108, and 85%. Fourth year, he just gets paid. Obviously, his contract ends after the fourth year. Logically, it doesn't make sense to me. Now, they may say, we cut your salary. Okay, that's punitive, I guess. And we'll give money to the pool of assistant coaches. Well, then you're taking money from one pocket and putting it into the other. That doesn't make sense. I really flipped this around in my head for a while. There are likely people smarter than me involved in this and in charge of this who could probably explain it better than I can. I just don't see where the stick and the carrot lead you to a situation where he comes back with an amended contract.
Well, and that was the problem with the extension. There is no leverage. The only person that has the leverage is Neal Brown. And like you said, what you said, I dare you to fire me. Go ahead, fire me, and full contract for the next 4 years. Done. See ya. Thanks. And he's getting paid the same no matter what. So he has zero incentive or very little incentive to accept any sort of amended contract. Again, if they can work something out, I mean, if West Virginia had leverage, you make it incentive laden. You make it so that, hey, your base salary goes down, but if you win games, it goes up. It goes up, 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 up. And that's the only way to go. But why would you do that? Why would you, if you were the head coach, spurn the guarantee to take this gamble unless they made it so that the incentive laden winning season pays you a lot more than what you're already guaranteed?
Sometimes I put myself in people's shoes. Like, what would I do? And it's a very hard thing because I don't know the position or the work or the consequences to come with it. A 4th and 2 when my season is on the line, for example, I just wouldn't know that. Or a 4th and inches in the first game of the season. It's hard to be in those shoes and be authoritative on stuff. So this is really hard for me to do. But I just can't imagine a scenario in which I'm Neal Brown or his agent. And I say, you know what? That's actually a good idea. They did blank to make it worth my while. They are doing this to fire me. But this is a nice consolation prize. This is a nice golden parachute. And I don't know what that blank is. We'll see. Rem Baker, evidently well-versed in coaching searches, fundraising. He might need both. We'll see. But as a first act, Chris, as a handshake to the fan base, I don't know where this is in the meter. This is probably not the top, probably not the bottom, right in the middle. And there's nothing wrong with that. You'd really like to be on the right foot going forward with your first significant move. And by the way, this is day 1 in office.
Does this qualify as winning the press conference if the press conference isn't until Monday?
Yeah. By the way, did you notice when his date effective was?
I did not.
The first day of the dead period in the transfer portal. Why is that significant?
Oh, boy.
Because if you don't make a move on your head coach until, I don't know, the first day of the transfer portal, guys who are in the portal, they really can't take official visits anywhere. So if you, again, hypothetically, on December 17th, say, sorry, Neal, we're moving on. Kids have about 24 hours to get into the portal, 48 hours to get into the portal, and then figure out where they're going to go on their official visits. It's very hard to do. You can go in the portal, but you're on a dead period. You can't have that face-to-face contact, the in-person contact on or off campus. So you're kind of just very, very light recruiting yourself and very, very light recruiting of you. And you got about a month, if you're a new head coach at that point, to come in and say, hey, I know you're in the portal. I also know you can't go visit anywhere. Come on a Zoom with me. Come back to campus and just check out, what I got going on here in my office. We'll talk about some things. If you're a new coach who's hired in that period, let's say sometime between December 1st and December 19th, you have a chance to woo kids who have gone into the portal who can't go anywhere during that dead period. I just thought it was funny that December 19th is a date that's 2.5 weeks from now, and that is when Rem Baker starts on the job. Coincidence?
Mike?
Maybe.
Oh, sorry. Would you like to read the email while I put it up on the website, and then we can react?
From, by the way.
Yes. We can react in real time.
Let's do it
as we're reading this. Go ahead. You go ahead and read because I'm going to put it up on the site.
Okay. I'll speak slowly here. Rob Alsop, interim athletic director. Quote, over the past several weeks, President Gee and I have discussed the future of WVU athletics and our football program with a number of individuals and talented athletic administrators from across the country. We were also impressed with the effort of our team the last few weeks. Additionally, we have also had discussions with Coach Brown and our new director of athletics, Ren Baker, about our next steps as a department. In fact, Ren and Coach Brown have already connected relating to the future of the program. As a result of all these efforts and discussion, it is clear that Coach Brown should continue to lead our football program. With new energy that comes with new leadership, it is time to rally around Ren's leadership as we move forward quickly to recruit more top student athletes to our program and continue to develop the incredibly talented group of returning players who are an integral part of our Mountaineer family. I know that Ren will be focusing a lot of his time and attention on how we improve our results on the football field and across a number of our programs. I will continue to work with Ren, Neal, and the rest of our athletic programs to ensure a smooth transition to the next era for our athletics department. Let's go. All right, let's go.
First things first, the author.
Rob Alsop, not Gordon Gee, not the head of the board of governors, not Ren Baker. Now, I guess Ren Baker isn't the AD until the 19th, as we just said, but doesn't come from the president. It comes from the interim athletic director. I can tell you that they did have conversations with other people about, hey, what do you think about our football program? Some of that is the turnkey people and the people that turnkey can put West Virginia in touch with. No idea what those conversations yielded, but obviously a good review. I just have a hard time believing that if they lost Saturday, this decision isn't different. That's kind of become apparent to me in the last, 2 days or so. Curious to me that there's nothing in there about what it will take and what the expectations are. If you read any of our stuff, if you listened to our rants and ramblings and insight and innuendo before, a problem that I've covered for years and has frustrated past parts of the athletic department is there are no expectations really etched in cement for football. And what was maybe most curious or concerning to people from Shane Lyons' appearance on the radio on Monday was they were looking at like a 7-win season. They were cool with that. Now, is a 7-win season the reality? Maybe. But in addition to that, he mentioned, the glory days of the early 2000s. And this is not that time. College football is different. And West Virginia's space in college football is not occupied by the same company it once was. They're in a higher tier, of course. The Big 12 is more difficult than the Big East back when West Virginia was really humming in that conference, middle of the 2000s. Undefined, though, including like Dana Holgerson's contract extensions. What was good enough? What was expected? What was underwhelming? Don't know. Never really knew. And that's kind of been a question mark, a bit of a gray area, a cloud that's hard to see through sometimes when it comes to West Virginia football. Do they have an opportunity to clear up the annual expectations of West Virginia football right now in this 3-paragraph press release? No. I don't think it's the place for that. What does it take to keep Neal? Like, what did he do well? What really impressed everybody in the past couple of weeks? Like, what's the stuff that was good enough to keep Brown around that he has to sustain? And also, what were his shortcomings? Because clearly they were if you're having this conversation through email at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday night, the day you hired an athletic director. Calls into a lot into question here, including like, what are the expectations? Like, what's going to be good enough for Brown? Does he have to win 4 of his first 6? Does he have to have a winning record in the first month of the season? Does he have to go 2-1 in non-conference play? I don't know. I just think that like this could be very prickly in October. I would say that for sure Brown is on the clock, but he has been for a while. I don't think that's any type of a statement, but I just don't think it changes his he's suddenly not off the hot seat. He goes into the season on the hot seat for sure. And we'll see. This is maybe not the place in the space to talk about a contract, this press release, but like I do wonder about that. Will the contract be amended, staff changes, anything like that? I don't think this is the spot for that conversation. Wouldn't have been surprised, however, to see something in that press release say, we have decided to let these 2 people walk and we'll be having new blank coordinator. I don't know. We'll see if that happens in the future. Could that have been in this email? No. Could a new contract or amendments be in the email? I'd be shocked if it was done by now. So no, but again, maybe they were doing their homework on this ahead of time and they had this all wrapped up in a package. But to you, Chris, as I hope I've talked long enough here for you to do the editorial work on our website. No expectations or explanations here apart from we just think this is going in the right direction. How does this strike you as far as what's no longer an opening statement, but kind of the continued statement about athletics? It's not Rem Baker's words, so it's not his opening statement, but this is the next phase, the to be continued for football.
I'm with you with a big, the one sticking point here is something you just brought up, is that there's nothing in here. And again, maybe this wasn't the spot to do it, but there's nothing that says what the expectations are. That has, that's been the problem. And you talked about it with Dana, with Neal Brown. And what was it? When was it that Shane Lyons, well, he didn't release the statement, but was pressed for a statement from the AP and made a statement? It was like week 3, week 4.
In between games 2 and 3.
Okay. After Kansas, but before Towson. And basically he just said, what's happening so far is not good enough, but we're going to continue to monitor it. And then what had happened continued to happen, but nothing changed except Shane Lyons got fired. And then no answers. And then again, Rob Alsop says, we'll just continue to evaluate it. This was after Shane Lyons got fired. And this just says, we're going to continue to evaluate it. So we're going on several months now here of just different leaders saying the same thing, but not putting out a concrete goal for what they expect of this program. Maybe we get that Monday. So maybe, this is just a statement to just say, hey, Brown's here and shore up some of these things, because I mentioned it on the pod that I released earlier today. There are players wondering about it. Actually, a lot of the players actually knew. I talked about it on that podcast that basically Monday afternoon, they were informed changes are not coming, that coaching staff is going to, or Neal Brown will be here, and there's no exact plan to change assistant coaches at that time. But that recruits were wondering. Recruits were visiting other schools. One recruit in particular had changed his enrollment date. He had originally planned to enroll in January, but then told me this evening that he is going to enroll in May. I'll have that in a VIP update for our members in the morning. Kind of want to see how this changes that before I throw that out there, because I mean, he gave me the exact quote, but maybe once he knows that Neal Brown's back, then maybe he looks back into enrolling in January. Who knows? Like recruiting's fickle. We already know that. This indecision from the program and what's going on with the future of Neal Brown makes it even more fickle. And this is just setting up with, again, hopefully Monday changes some things, but with no expectations, no concrete guidelines set, you're just setting it up for 10 more months, 12 more months of mass confusion and, people, I don't know. It just got to be some kind of decisions making on in a clear path here.
I'm trying to rank the follies and the flaws in the plan so far, and I just wonder about whomever was so eager to get rid of Shane Lyons, and obviously there were people. Why'd they wait so long?
Yeah,
I mean, that's a big one there, and that would make me circle back to this. Like, if there were problems with Neal Brown, and clearly there are people who are not satisfied with his performance, and why wait so long? These are uneven actions and incongruous actions here. So, I mean, you're doing one thing right, and you think you're doing another one right, but they're not the same. It's just, that's a hard thing to wrap your head around right now. And again, we'll grant them the liberty of explanations on Monday morning. There's a news conference there, but it does seem like they have some time to get some answers, and I'm sure there are going to be a lot of questions asked here. And I think an easy one is, listen, what are the expectations? Because I mean, even if to your point on recruiting, Chris, and even the guy, like, let me just pick on Jacoby Spells once again. How's that? He's been my unfortunate guinea pig all this season. Like, he's a guy who played a little bit this year, and he still has a free transfer to go. But like, his coach is back, and he's like, yeah, I like him. I'll be happy about this. He doesn't know if his position coach or his defensive coordinator will be back. He can still make that decision. If one or both are back, maybe he stays. But if his coach is gone halfway through the season next year, then he's gone probably too. There's situations that are parallel to him. It could be recruits, it could be true freshmen, just anybody who's in that situation. I'm just picking on him because he's been a good sport throughout all this, right? So even putting an end to this right now, the portal still opens up on Monday, and we talked about this. It's still wise to go in there, and the fact that you said he's going to come back, the university can't say how long he's going to be back, but also they can't say how long he's going to be back because that's up to Brown and the performance of his program right now, which just frankly hasn't given you an indication that he's going to be here for a very long time. Can they make those changes, and where does that begin, Chris? Like, and that may be a question as well for Baker. That may be hard to answer, but how do you arm your program with what it needs? Because he inherited Seth Luttrell. They were good in their second and third seasons, won 9 games in their second and third seasons, and then went through some really thin years, 4 wins, 6 wins, losing records each of those seasons. The heat was up on Luttrell. He stuck with him, and they're playing for the conference championship on Friday. So it's a different sport there, but I think fundamentally it's the same. You have to do something to help your football program. They did facilities and things like that help that you really can't do here at West Virginia. Do you throw money at it? Do you insist on changes? I don't know what you do that they haven't already tried to do here.
Buy every player in the portal. That's about it. I mean, I feel like that might be their plan here. Obviously, they are building around trying to make Country Roads Trust bigger and better than it ever was. The moment that Shane Lyons was out, Rob Alsop was promoting Country Roads Trust. They're pushing the membership there. They're trying to gain money there again, and that money is too, according to their statement, 100% of that money goes to players. 100%. How they distribute that and everything, that's up to them and the players, because those players are not just football players. It's basketball. It's non-revenue sports. It's all around the university. But we've thrown around the idea before, Mike. I think you did on podcast a while back about, hey, taking that money and using it to pay for players, like the money, instead of buying them out, use that money to pay for players, to pay this NIL, to put money into the Country Roads Trust. But are you able to look these donors? And I don't hate that idea, by the way. I have always been a Jimmy's and Joe's over X's and O's guy. I don't think Neal Brown's as bad as a coach as some people think he is. And I'm not sure, like, making changes is going to end up like same players, but get a new coach and all of a sudden they're going to win 10 games. I don't think that either. I think this is a Jimmy's and Joe's game. And so if you can get all the players in the world, you can get it. But where's that money coming from? Because you could say that you got the money from donors, big donors, to say buy out the coach. But you say, hey, actually, instead of that $1 million, $5 million, $2 million, $500,000, whatever everybody's given, we take your money and use it to pay John Smith from down in Tuscaloosa. He's going to come up here and he's going to be your star quarterback. Are big money donors going to buy into that? Okay, I'll write you a check for $1 million and you go get that quarterback who might leave in 6 months. Are they going to buy into that? I just don't think they are.
You have to go with them and say, hey, we got this guy. Can you pay for him? You can't do hypotheticals. Yeah. I think it'd be very hard to do that. But they got people in charge that know how to do that. Like, I would not underestimate Oliver Luck, Ken Kendrick, and the people they've hired and put in the spots here to do something special. That idea is weeks old, and people laughed at it and said, that's a terrible idea, Mike. It's not going to happen. I said, it's being talked about. Okay. It's being talked about. And here we are. This has taken a lot of twists and turns. And like, that was an idea that I believe it was mentioned in a 3 Things I Think piece, because I thought it was an interesting idea. I did not think it was going to go somewhere. And it appears to be, behind the glass right now. They've certainly broken the glass and are reaching for something, and it could work. And it might work in this situation because you're going to need a quick fix. You're not going to go out and turn this around with a very good recruiting class. I know people are like very high on the class that's coming in. Awesome. How many of those players are going to be impact players that turn this barge around in the first season? Few, right?
2 or 3 at most. Yeah.
At most. Yeah. And you're going to have to go out and get splash players, especially on defense, to disrupt the passing game, whether it's up front or in the back. And you're going to have to get playmakers at receiver. You're going to have to. Interesting to me that Bryce Ford Wheaton is in the draft, not the transfer portal, but also not coming back, and made this decision pretty promptly. Sam James, for not to put words in his mouth, it did seem like as he went down the road the last week, his during the week interview and his post game interview, that was probably the end for him. We'll see. There have been indications spoken otherwise. That might be it. It's your top two receivers. Prather, talented, sure. Work hard to keep him. He'd be smart to play the game right now. And then can they get game breakers at receiver? Offensive line. This is a move that would keep everybody in the offensive line, I think. Running back room, not worried about. And we can close with this, Chris. For a very different reason, but for like the fifth straight offseason, what in the heck do they do about quarterback?
They're going to have another quarterback battle in the spring, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think both of our intel and from various people from various angles are indicating that, and this is something, we kind of threw out there as like hey, this might happen and it might be kind of crazy, of JT Daniels, Nico Marchio, and Garrett Green all coming back. Now, I haven't heard anything one way or another on Will Crowder. I'm not meaning to leave him out in particular. I mean, he's had his moments. He was the best quarterback in the spring game last spring. There were weeks where the coaching staff said he was the best quarterback during that week of practice. So we know he's there and capable, but I just haven't heard one way or another anything on him staying or going, while the other three, it's been, hey, it sounds like he's staying. And West Virginia might have a 3-man quarterback battle in the spring again.
I don't think JT can transfer.
Right. I don't think he can either. Not with if Neal Brown returns, I think he has to get a waiver, and it would be a more difficult waiver than it has been in the past.
Can he go down a level?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. I think you can transfer down no matter what.
It'd be awesome to see him go to like West Florida as light dudes up for a year. But if he comes back, because you mean in some regard you might be better off giving it a shot and getting your day in the sun in the Big 12. Green, Marchio, but that's not even the issue, Chris. Like, what offense are they running? Because those are not the same offenses. They're not. And I think you would be much more likely to pull in no matter what offense they pick, they have those needs at receiver and tight end. Don't forget that. I left that one out. That's a big, big need. You're much more likely to acquire the talent you need there in a JT Daniels offense than a Garrett Green offense. I'm not sure about Nico Marchio. He's probably bits of each and maybe a little bit more Daniels than people think, but also maybe a little bit more Green than people think. Is he going to win an offseason competition? I don't know. I certainly can't go on 2 for 9 for 29 yards. I can't, but we'll see. I just haven't seen him enough behind the scenes or in games or practices, but they like him a lot. They say a lot of good things about him. And for a performance that wasn't spectacular, a much more favorable review than any of Garrett Green's performances in his first and second season, right? So there's something there they like, and they were able to project in that performance. So he's in this for sure. So it's 2-3 people for sure. But what offense they running? Because they're not the same offense. And you can probably do more of an air raid Graham Harrell offense with certainly Daniels and maybe Marchio than Green. Not that Green can't do it, but he's better off in something different, and the offense is better off in something different. What's common between those two offenses are the playmakers at receiver, and what style is going to get a receiver in more, like an RPO or an air raid. And even if it's an air raid that can run the ball, it's going to be hard to sell people on that. Like, wait a minute, you got a quarterback, he's running 17 times. Those can be 17 targets in the passing game, right? So that's going to be a tricky thing for them to manage. So here we go. Progress is always a talk, and this is kind of an unfair critique, but they're actually back at square one a little bit where, hey, we got JT Daniels, and hey, we got Garrett Green, and hey, we got Nico Marchio again. And is that a bad thing? I don't know, but that's certainly that's a Rubik's Cube they're going to have to line up the right way there. And boy, that gives us something to talk about this offseason, doesn't it? Because you know what we needed, Chris? Another soap opera.
Yes, absolutely. I think we've already merged 4 podcasts into one right here and could probably do another 10 before next week's press conference, but maybe we should wait on that. But I do have 2 questions for you, and they can both be quick number answers. How many wins does it take for Neal Brown to be safe after next year?
Next year?
Yeah. How many wins does he need in 2023?
He has to play in a bowl game.
No. Give me a number, Mike.
6.
Are you saying 6?
Yeah.
Really?
Chris, they want this to work.
I know, but 6 is safe now?
Chris, if you turn a 6 upside down, it's a 9. I mean,
And
that's how close they are to 9
technically,
wins.
and technically that'll only be year 1.5.
Yeah.
I think we go back a year because there's a new athletic director. So he's back in year 1. So
Year 0. Can I drop this bomb now? All the people who threw that year 0 nonsense out are also out there now saying that Brown is 22-25. Not true. He's not 3 games under 500. He's 1 game under 500 because you guys didn't count year 0. You can't be in both parties. You cannot. You can only go to one party. You cannot go to both. I will not have this.
Okay.
Can't.
Hey, wait.
Well,
so your serious answer was 6.
If you turn a 6 upside down, it's a 9, Chris. You're not that far from 9 wins.
Okay. Second question. What's West Virginia's salary cap this offseason?
For who? Players or coaches?
Players.
I mean, they just saved themselves $16.7 million.
Okay.
So a lot, I would say.
Yeah.
And you go out and you shake the trees, and it's a good thing he's a good fundraiser because if he can stimulate CRT and the MAC, then that can take care of some issues there. I've had a number of people email me. They're back and forth. Country Roads Trust.
Mm-hmm.
Where does my money go? I don't want to do this anymore. What's going on? And they're pretty consistently saying, like, this doesn't go to the coaches. It doesn't go to the staff. It goes to the players, which makes me think that, like, they're behind the players on this and they really want to be aggressive about it. That's been a consistent response to, like, varying questions, but, like, consistent, like, our money goes to the players, not the coaches, not the staff. We're not supporting the staff. We're not supporting the coaches. We're supporting the players on this. That's interesting to me. My question for you, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Surprised? That's a big question. I understand, but, like, this has been like a 2-month long saga for us, from people like pulling me into stairwells at football games to now. And we never try to get ahead of the story so much so that, like, what we think is going to happen is what we report, because that kind of leads you to what you want to do. And this is kind of the Shane Lyons thing. Wanting to be right can often be a mistake sometimes. So we didn't want to be right. We just want to know what was going on. But I'm somewhat surprised that here we are, especially after the way they played late in the season, and that I just think that they failed to impress with some of their victories and even the styles of those performances.
I want to say not surprised because it was this whole messed up scenario was, like, again, not that Neal Brown's coming back. Again, the whole back forth, fire the AD, bring in the new AD, but you're keeping the coach, and it's all just a jumbled mess of a message and everything. That was there. It was why I brought up that conversation. It's why I ranted on that podcast 6 weeks ago. And so this exact scenario was in my mind at that time. That being said, after, God, my memory's getting bad. The loss that put them to 3-6.
Yeah.
And we got on the pod right here. And I thought, that's it. Losing to Iowa State in the basement bowl. That's what we were calling it. It was 2 teams that were sitting at the bottom of the Big 12. And West Virginia looked lifeless. Their defense was fine, but it was a complete dud. It was a complete and utter dud. And after that game, you and I hopped on this pod and we said, who cares how it finishes? Like 3-3, what does that change? Or winning 3 in a row and getting 6-6, what does that change? What does it change? And they didn't even go 3-0, and apparently it changed something, because, again, I think after that game there were indications that was it. Now maybe those indications were that was it for Shane Lyons, but I think if you had asked me, 6 weeks ago, yeah, this was in my radar. 3 weeks ago, I'd be stunned that this is where we ended up. And then again, as we got closer, it was like, this is seeming more and more likely because the AD search taking as long as it did. Again, it didn't take long, but because they delayed the decision in the first place, it made it too late in the process. And this seemed more and more like a reality as we got closer.
Not gonna lie, I thought you were animated that night.
I liked it. I didn't think I was, but somebody brought it up on the board, and then somebody chimed in, called me a smug piece of something, and they couldn't stand to even listen to me on that pod for that take. And I was like, wow, God, what did I sound like? So I don't know. Maybe that's what people think all the time. It's possible.
No. But, like, here we are so many weeks later, and it doesn't seem like it came to fruition. I'm never gonna agree or disagree with things like this because like you can't judge the result on the decision, or the decision on the result because you don't have the results yet. Just surprised by it because all the indications are. I'm the guy who says use your eyes. I watched him fire an athletic director who gave an extension to a coach that they didn't seem to like very much, even though they wanted to work. And now I'm like, I probably missed the obvious thing. They couldn't fire the coach. They fired the AD, the guy who put him in the situation where they couldn't fire him because that $16.7 million is a big deal. We'll see what happens to the contract and all that stuff, and what happens with assistant coaches. Those are questions that we'll have to ask and have answered on Monday. And to your point, Chris, what they did and or did not do, but certainly the what now is what happens in the offseason, which is, again, even if they had gone 6-6, okay, to make a bowl, that didn't happen. But like, what? That was asked because it doesn't guarantee players are going to stay, and they have not been able to navigate the offseason before. Way too much turnover, which makes you wonder about like the culture that Shane Lyons believed in so much. Assistant coaches who leave or are not brought back or move to different positions. Like the offseason is just going to have to be hit. And even if it is, because we thought they kind of hit a lot last offseason, you kind of have to arch your brow to it all and be like, well, let's see how it works. And there's a lot of finger crossing right now instead of finger pointing or chest thumping or things like that. So I guess stay tuned. This is not ending at all. Like they probably put this to bed, but they have certainly opened up what is going to be a very interesting and integral offseason for West Virginia. Chris?
Yeah. I was going to say I would stay tuned because I think, again, the definitive-ish nature of today is going to be helpful for West Virginia, at least short term. Like it's going to help with this recruiting class. It's going to help with transfer portals ins and outs. Again, that's something we talked about even back when we were saying 3-6, 6-6, who cares? Is that the players cared for these coaches, were fighting for these coaches. So them coming back, I would think would help with retention. It's what I've heard so far. Again, you're not expecting a flawless transfer portal. There are going to be guys that leave no matter what, but I think more people are staying than would have stayed if there was a coaching change, which I don't think is that crazy of a comment. But I also think it's going to help with recruiting. It'll help with their staying, and we'll see how it helps. The key is going to be, how is it going to help? Not with retention, because I think it will help with retention, but addition. There is the second part to that. Just returning what you have, 10 years, 15 years ago made you a powerhouse. Returning just what you have now just put you a step behind.
Yeah.
So got to go out and add.
Yeah. Like a year from now, they're not be like, well, he's got a good recruiting class coming in, or well, that recruiting class will be good next year, or well, we got the portal. That's not going to be good enough. Immediacy is urgent right now. And they gave themselves a good runway. I guess you could say that. The portal opens on Monday, and they got 2 weeks before people can stop making visits and all that. So we'll know, we'll have some answers before too long. We have answers now. We won't go on too much longer. Good month, Chris. We'll try to make December more lively. Until then, I'm Mike Casaza.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
We'll talk to you then.